All right, my third grade mathematicians, I'm excited to continue our discussion of area with you. So we are going to review our math focus points for today's lesson and then we'll get started. All right, so today we are going to be determining area using square units and half units. Okay, so we're going to be talking about how when we put square units together, what the area of the shape will be. We're also going to be focusing on examining the relationship between the areas of rectangles and triangles. Okay? All right, so we're going to continue thinking about area and about square units. And just like we use different measures for length, like inches, feet, yards, or even miles, depending on what we need to measure, there are different size of units for measuring. So suppose we wanted to measure the floor so we could order a rug for the classroom, or if you wanted to order a rug for your room. Here are some different square units people use to measure a flat surface. So I'm going to show you 3 different square units, and I want you to think about which one might you choose to measure the floor. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and grab my square units. So this first one is a square inch. Okay, that means that each side of the square's measurement is 1 inch. So would we want to use these to think about ordering a new rug for our classroom or for your room? It's a little small, isn't it? Okay. This right here is 1 square foot. And this may look very familiar, especially if you've been, or if your classroom has square tiles on the floor. Each square tile measures 1 square foot. So could we use these to measure for a new rug? Yeah, I kind of gave you a hint there when we were talking about the square tiles on the floor. Okay, so some people, when they're talking about area, they measure in square inches. They measure in square feet, and I've got one more to show you. This one right here, square yard. Each side of the square is 1 yard. So could you use a square yard to measure for a new rug? Probably. That's a little big, so probably more for larger rooms, or if you're building a house, you might want to use a larger unit. But we typically see square feet when measuring for the floor or for room sizes. So what do you think something in the classroom or in your room that you might use the smallest square unit for? What would we use this for? Maybe the surface of your desk or of the book, something smaller to measure. So when measuring length, you use a unit like inch, but if you're measuring area, like the cover of a book or this piece of paper, you'd use a square unit like this one. So if you're just measuring the length of something, you just use inches, because if you're using the ruler, you're just measuring how long something is. But if you're trying to measure the inside, the area, then you would use square units. Okay? Now, we talked about square inches, square feet, square yards. You can also, with the metric system, we talked about the U.S. standard measurements and the metric system. There are also square centimeters, square meter, whatever your unit of measure is. Okay. So remember, we used centimeters and meters when we measured lengths earlier in the unit. Also in our unit 2, when we measured the classroom, we measured in meters and yards. Okay. So how do you think a square centimeter and a square meter compare to these other square units? What do you think is the biggest? Which is the smallest? Let me go grab a square centimeter. So thinking about on a ruler, which unit of measurement was smaller? Centimeters or inches? Centimeters, right? So this right here is 1 square centimeter. This is 1 square inch. So centimeters are smaller than an inch. Okay? So we are going to be working on pages 239 and 240 today. And let me actually bring that up so that we can talk about it. Here we go. I'm going to come back to that in just a minute. So we are going to be looking on pages 239 and 240. Take a look at these pages, and what do you notice about these shapes? These are called Tetromino puzzles. What do you notice about these shapes? What are the square units on these pages? Do you remember what the area of each Tetromino is? That's right, 4 square units. All right, you should have a copy of these square and triangle cutouts, so that's what you're going to be using. I'm actually going to flip back over and go to the page that I was on prior that showed the different shapes on your pages. So your task today is going to be cutting out the squares and triangles and arrange them so that they cover those 5 Tetronimos on the pages 239 and 240. So you may need to arrange and rearrange them to find a way to make the pieces fit. And remember, when you find area, everything has to be covered. There can't be any gaps or overlaps, okay? So when you have found a way that they all fit, you just glue your pieces on those pages, okay? Now, let's talk about these pieces before you get started. So what's the area of this piece right here? You're right, that's 1 square unit. What about this triangle right here, the smaller triangle? What would be the area of this triangle? Well, if I were to put 2 of these together, if it'll turn, let's see, there we go. It would make 1 square unit. Let's see, I'm having trouble getting it to move. Let's see if I can move this one up. There we go, 1 square unit. So 1 triangle would be 1/2 square unit, okay? What about this larger triangle? What about this larger triangle? What do you think the measurement of this larger triangle would be? If I bring another one down and I put it together, let's see if it'll let me. There we go. Let's see if it'll let me turn. There. All right. Well, if I put 2 of them together, they make 2 square units. Do you see that? So the measurement of this larger triangle is 1 square unit. So the larger triangle is 1 square unit. This square is 1 square unit. And the smaller triangle is 1/2 square unit. So think about those measurements as you are covering the puzzles on pages 239 and 240. Okay? All right, guys, I'm excited for you to complete this activity so we can talk about it in the next video.